Although there was no music in the air, it felt as though an orchestra were tuning their instruments. Chapter 32. Temptation's Most Atrocious Deed. Evan and his young time separation had now moved partway along the glass-covered bridge and were totally aghast at what was taking place in the other glass bridges. Temptation was standing in the middle bridge and had opened a sliding window. He was leaning out and talking to a small girl who was standing in the far glass corridor. She was listening intently through an open window across from him. Would he recognize the girl as being the sunburnt victim of the youths who had pictured her in the field near the crossroads? Temptation was promising to look after the girl and telling her that nobody would bully her or be cruel to her ever again if she would just trust him. "I promise you, darling, you can be free from torment with me on your side as your protector. Trust me, everything will be fine." Evan tried to open the window, but in his panic he did not realize that the window slid sideways. Fate pushed his way in front of Evan and slid the window open. Fate tried desperately to shout louder than Temptation's promises, which were beginning to sound lyrical, and although there was no music in the air, it felt as though an orchestra were tuning their instruments. Temptation turned to look at whose combined vociferous efforts had defeated his own words of enticement. It mattered not. For some unseen force, something more powerful was having an influence upon the girl's actions. Even if she had owned the desire to resist, her feet had taken on a will of their own. Fate and the others watched helplessly as the girl climbed up onto the windowsill, encouraged and assisted all the way by the soundbreakers that she wore on her feet. Temptation held out his arms to the girl, compelling her to jump across from her bridge to the safety of his. Trustingly, she succumbed to temptation and launched herself into his arms. Unbelievably, the instant that her feet left the windowsill, Temptation stepped back. He lowered his arms, which had beckoned the girl in, and then quickly closed the window which had invited her in. The power that Temptation, along with the soundbreakers, had wielded over the girl was too much for her to resist on her own. The absence of her guardian and her older time separation had assisted Temptation in his wicked deed and sent the girl plummeting down to the courtyard below. Fate, Evan and the boy were mortified at Temptation's behaviour, and even worse, the macabre pleasure which he derived from the girl's fall as he danced with delight in the glass corridor. He danced and skipped along the glass bridge, singing something about becoming the fifth absolute. He then disappeared through some sliding doors. "Quick, she might not be dead," cried the youngster beseechingly, as he strained to see some slight movement from the poor, fallen girl. "There is nothing we can do. It does not concern us. It is not our business," Fate told them, and he warned them again about interfering with someone else's journey. Everyone was appalled at Fate's indifference and would not listen. He was off, running down the corridor, forgetting his early promise, shouting as he went, "We've got to try, Fate! Come on, follow me and help!" Fate started running after him, shouting, come back, we can't interfere, it's against the rules." Woody sank to the floor and began to cry, cursing himself for not helping the girl yesterday. As he cried, he sobbed the word, "Sorry." Then he began to sob and wish he had helped the girl when the youths were tormenting her in the field. "I'm so sorry," he sobbed, feeling that he was responsible for the girl's fall. A terrible wave of contrasting emotions washed over the boy as he realized that he was the one who was offered the soundbreakers first. He felt relieved that it was the girl, not him, who had ended up wearing the trainers. No, sorry, I didn't mean. But it was too late, for the words of self-preservation were out there. He hoped that Fate would never know about the wicked sentiment which he had just voiced. It was all too much, and the guilt overwhelmed him. Woody was incapable of controlling it, and the responsibility of it all made him sob out loud. As Fate dashed past the future's office, Fortune tried to pass him the documents which were now ready. Fate knew he had to catch Evan, so he gasped some words of procrastination, and then pursued Evan down the stairs, finally catching up to him in the courtyard. "Look!" cried Evan, pointing to the far end of the courtyard. "Give him a shout, Fate. He's bound to be able to help." Evan pleaded some more, and against his better judgment, Fate shouted across to the courtyard to Time. Time came across the courtyard, followed by his companion, Tide. He knelt down beside the small girl to feel for her pulse. Time shook his head and looked up at Fate and Evan, and then softly said, "As you know, healing the sick is my forte. Regrettably, I am not sure how much longer this mortal girl has left in personificadia. Sorry, she is in such a bad way that even if I could restore her to health by working my magic, I am not sure she'd want to be saved and live the life of a—" Time softly shook his head, unable to bring himself to finish his sentence. Nobody spoke. Even Fortune, who had followed Fate downstairs with the new future documents, was silent. Young Woody had made his way downstairs and pushed open the door to the courtyard. He wiped away the remainder of the tears from his cheeks, and a combination of fear and guilt found him biting on his lip. Evan held out his hand, and the boy silently walked over to him. He stood with his back to Evan and nestled into the safety and comfort of himself, the elder. And still nobody spoke. A loud scream shattered the silence. Everybody looked up towards the glass bridge from where the girl had fallen. "No!" screamed the woman, as she looked down at the young girl she once was. She made no attempt to grab the large floppy hat that had fallen from her head, as she once more screamed the word, "No!" "Look," said Woody, as new hope was kindled by the girl's hand, which moved ever so slightly. Once again, Time apologized, saying there was nothing he could do so long as the girl was not breathing, and explained that the movement was merely a spasm. Evan looked at Fate, who for some reason turned and looked at Fortune. "It's no good looking at me. I can't help her." "Try," Fate urged, knowing that if anybody could turn things around, then Fortune could. So he handed Fate the two future documents and reluctantly knelt down to give artificial respiration to the girl. The floppy hat landed near Fortune, kissing his shoulder on the way past. "What do you think you're doing?" demanded the red-haired woman, who had raced down to the courtyard. "Nothing," said Fortune, standing back up and stepping away from the girl. He looked fearful when he saw who was accompanying the woman and the girl on their journey. Even though he had printed off the two future documents a short while ago, he had not seen the two mortal time separations who they were intended for. Fortune knew that Nemesis had malevolence running through her core, but pushing a young girl out of a four-story window? Surely not. Fate too felt uneasy when he saw the entity who the woman had unwittingly entrusted herself to. Fate realized that there was no hope for the girl, which in turn meant that the woman's journey was also at an end. "He was trying to help, trying to stop her from dying," Evan explained. "Dying?" she questioned in a state of despair. "She can't be dying. We've got these, and she waved two future documents at him. Evan did not like the look of the documents because they were grey in colour and the lettering on them was black, whereas the documents which Fate was holding were a deep, rich red, embossed with gold letters. The woman sank to the ground and knelt beside her young self. "You're not going to die," she promised her. "It's not meant to be. We've got these." And again she gave the future documents a wave in the air. "Look," she said, and she gave her young self a gentle shake. The girl was silent and motionless. She looked lifeless to everyone except the poor desperate woman. "Look," she said again, in a hopelessly optimistic whisper. She opened up the girl's documents to show her all the splendid ways, describing all the marvellous times and events which lay ahead. The woman swayed to one side and had to steady herself, even though she was knelt on the ground, for the future document was blank. Not one solitary word occupied the entire folder. Desperate and beginning to tremble, she began to lose control of her very being. She then pulled open the other future document. She stared at the blank paper and brought it closer to her eyes, hoping perhaps that it was written in tiny letters. There was nothing. As she knelt next to her young self with a blank document in each hand, the penultimate event of the woman's journey told her that it was all over. Both documents crumbled and left the woman's hands, forming two ominous piles of grey dust on the ground. Ever so slightly, the young girl opened her eyes and looked at her older time separation. "Sorry," she said. "I've let you down. I'm sorry, Rubes." And tears ran silently down the girl's face. "It's not your fault, darling. It's hers." And she glared across at Nemesis. The woman was growing ever increasingly weaker as she struggled to stand, yet somehow she managed to walk over to the entity that had escorted them on their journey. "I thought you were going to look after us," she sobbed at the entity whom she had wrongly perceived to be their guardian. "I lied," was the bitter reply which the woman received. "Why?" asked the woman, who was barely capable of standing for much longer, never mind comprehend the change in the entity's attitude. "Integrity belonged to me," the scorned entity informed the mortal woman, who had stolen the entity's heart, which was betrothed to her. I had no idea until you turned up at the hotel, and then I no longer had any interest in him after I found out that he was a liar." "Me neither. But no one can make a fool out of me and expect to go unpunished. I am one of the four absolutes. I am Nemesis." "Sorry, I never meant to make a fool out of you," she uttered her final words before her person was no more, for she faded and disappeared along with her young self. The floppy hat was raised up by a light breeze of air, as though to chase after the woman and the girl's spirit, which may still need protecting from the sun in another brighter, more accommodating place. And then it was no more. Everyone could not believe that such a thing could be allowed to happen inside the realms of what he imagined was a similar journey to the one which he and his young self were on. He felt overwhelmed by the whole affair and vowed to be more vigilant with Woody's safety and, of course, his own. Fate had been expecting the worst when he saw who the girl and a woman were with. Even so, he did not like the way they had been treated, and again, against his better judgment, he spoke out. "You are a hard-hearted bitch, Nemesis," he told the stone-faced entity. "Yes, I am," agreed Nemesis, "and you do well to remember that, considering what you have been up to." Then she looked at Evan and the youngster, giving them both the once over before she turned and walked away into the glass building. Time and tide took their usual course and moved on. Fate told Evan and Woody that they must hurry now, and that they could not afford to hang around any longer as they were behind schedule. "We must go back up the stairs, along the glass bridge, and into the other side of the building to pick up your other documents." Woody was having difficulty with the idea of simply behaving as though nothing dreadful had just occurred. The guilt was still pressing down on him, covering him like a cloud of uneasiness. "What's wrong?" Fate asked, hoping that the boy would not take too long to explain. "I saw that girl yesterday being bullied, and I couldn't have helped her, but I didn't. I saw the woman talking to Temptation, and I could have helped her, but I never," Faye confided to the youngster. "Why not?" "My job is to take care of you two. The woman and the girl had their own entity to take care of them." "She didn't do a very good job." "Perhaps not," agreed Fate, "but it is not for any of us to interfere. There is nothing any of us could have done. None of us are to blame. Interfering with somebody else's journey is strictly forbidden." "Why?" pushed Woody, putting them a little further behind schedule. "Tampering with another person's journey can alter a multitude of possibilities which we would have no control over. Supposing you had slit the window open before I got to it, and Temptation had turned his intentions upon you. Then what? It could have been you who fell to your death. If you die, Evan dies. Is that what you want?" No, of course not." And the boy, along with Evan, now appreciated the rules. The three of them silently made their way back inside the glass-fronted building and up the stairs, each one of them deep in their own thoughts. A piece of electrical equipment situated at the far end of the corridor in an alcove caught Woody's attention. "What's that?" "It's a scanner and a printer," Fate informed him. "We put your future document in here," he said, pointing to a slot in the top of the scanner. "Then, when it's been scanned, the machine prints out your plan of action folder." Evan moved towards the scanner with the intention of pushing his document into the slot, to show he was willing to move things along. "Wait," Fate told him. "Yours goes in second." And then he dropped the boy's document into the scanner. As the machine scanned the paper, making beeps and bleeps, Evan pursued the reason as to why Woody's document had priority over his. Fate explained that the boy's future goal document and his plan of action would complement Evan's by being processed first, whereas processing Evan's paperwork first could have an adverse effect by pre-programming the boy's future document and plan of action folder. "Of course," said Evan, feeling a bit on the dim side for not realising that was about to be the case. He blamed the incident which had just occurred in the courtyard for his inability to comprehend procedure. Woody was watching the small lights on top of the printer as they blinked and winked at him whilst performing their various tasks. The printer started to make whirring noises, and Woody stepped back just to be on the safe side. He soon stepped back up to the machine when a dark blue document with light blue letters appeared in the tray at the bottom of the printer. He picked it out of the tray and read aloud the words printed on the front, which read, "Evan the Younger's plan of action." Woody sat down on the floor and looked up at Fate for permission to read the document. Fate gave him a consenting nod and then passed him the red future goal document, saying, "Have a look at that one first." Woody's concentration was interrupted by whirring noises coming from the printer as it processed Evan's plan of action. As soon as it dropped into the bottom tray and the future document was ejected from the top, Fate grabbed them both, Time to go, he ushered his two companions, well aware that they were now forebodingly behind schedule. He could almost hear the repercussions snapping at his heels. Woody picked up his documents and pouch, and they all moved off. They left the glass corridor via an automatic sliding door and entered the other side of the building. Over to the right-hand side was a flight of stairs leading downwards. This way, Woody encouraged them. He had spotted a sign above the handrail that read, "Way home." What are you waiting for? Evan was making no effort to advance towards the stairs. In fact, he was making no effort to do anything except stare. Fate followed his line of vision to see what was holding Evan's attention under lock and key. Even though the figure in the office window had his back turned, there was no mistaking who it was. "He's big, isn't he?" young Woody innocently commented when he saw the wide shoulders that Retribution possessed. Retribution was sat in the complaints department, doing what it is that is expected to be done in such a place: complaining. Woody was not going to be ignored easily, so he again commented on the size of Retribution. "He's bigger than you, isn't he, Fate?" Fate's concentration was so focused upon trying to hear the conversation which was going on inside the complaints department that he never really heard the question. "Is he more powerful than you?" the boy asked, pulling at Fate's sleeve. "No," snapped Fate, sounding annoyed and pulling his sleeve from the youngster's hand. "There is only one who is more powerful than I." When Fate looked at Woody's face, he realized they had upset the youngster by speaking sharply to him. Fate had not realized until that moment how fond he had grown of his young friend, and he apologized to the boy for being sharp with him. "That's okay. Shall we go now?" "We better had," replied Fate, and this time he was the one doing the sleeve pulling. "Time to go," he said, trying to pull Evan out of his trance and towards the steps. They had descended almost 4 flights of stairs before Evan's trust had convinced him that Retribution was not following on behind in order to retrieve the reclaimed watch. "There is no need for you to worry," Fate assured him. "Are you sure?" he asked, hurrying down the last flight of stairs while thinking back to the pool room incident. "Quite sure," said Fate. "Only the 4 absolutes who belong to the order of supreme entities may pursue somebody into the mortal world, and Retribution is not one of those 4. As they passed through the back doors of the Futures building and into the rear courtyard, neither of them could see Woody. "Oh, for goodness sake!" exclaimed Fate, feeling drained as it was, without now having to go searching for the absent boy. "What's in here?" asked Woody, his whereabouts becoming apparent. He was peering down into some kind of a basement through a large glass dome, which was one of a dozen in the rear grounds of the Futures building. He was rubbing a glass dome with his hand in order to clear the condensation that was obscuring his view, before realizing that it was on the inside of the dome. Evan looked at Fate, expecting some sort of response to Woody's question regarding the mysteries of the dome-covered room, but no such answer was forthcoming. Instead, Fate all but barked an order, "Move it, let's go!" Evan was proper taken aback, and Woody quickly made his way over to where they were both stood, making sure that he was positioned next to Evan. "Sorry," the youngster apologized, especially to Fate. "I've been seeing a new side to him, namely short-temperedness, twice in 5 minutes, which it was a little unnerving to him. Having finally set off back to Mortalitania, Fate breathed a surreptitious sigh of relief. He was pleased that the consequence of their unsanctioned journey had not caught up with them, and was moving further away with each step that they took. Neither Evan nor Woody realized that the delay caused by interfering with somebody else's journey had caused their own journey to take a turn for the worse.